business or family ties.
Former Foreign Secretary and old Etonian Douglas Hurd knows all about the head start a public school education can give you in politics. We're taking tea at his exclusive London club.
What is it about Eton that has produced so many prime ministers, so many politicians like yourself? Did they make you think you were born to rule?
No, you weren't born to rule, and it was quite clear that nothing was going to be given you on a plate. But it wasn't that you were grooming yourself to be a Prime Minister. That would have been absurd. If you were interested in politics, as I was, well then, of course, it was a good place to learn about it.
Historically, in the big chunk of the 20th century, to have gone to Eton was an advantage in a political career, to reach the highest levels.
I don't think it was a substitute for intelligence or hard work. You had to add those. But I agree. I mean, you knew a great many people simply by having been to Eton, and doors were open too, which were closed to others.
But by the time Hurd stood for the Tory leadership in 1990, being an Etonian had become a drawback. His poshness was a handicap and a reason why he lost to the humbler John Major. Yet 15 years on, when David Cameron stood for the leadership, it seemed less of a problem.
The one piece of advice I gave to David Cameron was, don't let that issue gallop away with you, and he didn't. He nailed it. He said at the beginning what I only said at the end, and when it was too late. I'm standing for leadership of the Tory party, not for some demented Marxist outfit, which I think was a crucial point to make. David Cameron is obviously and strongly intelligent person, and that's why he's Prime Minister. It's not because he went to Eton, it's not because the fact that he was at Eton has been a total obstacle. It hasn't been.
Of course, having had the best education money can buy shouldn't disqualify anybody from high office. But it's surely a sign of our fading meritocracy that old Etonians are ruling the country once more. There are now 20 old Etonians in the Commons, up 5 on the last Parliament, and a remarkable 8 are in government. That's right, 8 ministers went to the same school, the one with the historic buildings, the archaic uniforms, and a price tag of almost 30 grand a year. They protect that privilege jealously. Few are allowed inside its hallowed halls, ourselves included. So we sought out a couple of recent old boys to find out what it is about the school which produces so many ambitious political high flyers.
You're going up to Oxford this term, and you're already there, so you both will be at Oxford together.
And actually, arriving at university, I realised that actually the facilities here are a lot better than the ones at Oxford.
So really? You got a better science lab at Eton than you have at Oxford.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it?
Do you have any sense when you were there, why did Eton produce so many politicians?
Politics-wise, because all the societies are boy-run, and often the leader of the society next year will be elected by boys. So there's almost already a lot of politics just in terms of trying to get elected and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that's a very, very healthy thing, and competition is actually encouraged throughout the school, because after all, life is a competition.
So it's a clear advantage to have gone to Eton, but there are some disadvantages.
Whenever someone asks what school you went to, you're always a little apprehensive, and you say Eton, and there does tend to be a certain expectation that you'll be a posh toff who's very snobbish. But I feel it's just part of our job to try and show that we're not that stuck up and arrogant most of the time.
Somerset, dairy country, a village festival. And local Tory MP, Jacob Rees-Mogg, just one of the half-dozen new old Etonians elected to Parliament for the first time in May, and less bothered, it seems, than the boys about being perceived as an Etonian toff. Even in 2010, we seem to be governed by a political elite from a narrow background.
I think this is the class warfare that the Labour Party wanted to fight at the last election that failed. I think it's utter nonsense that we want to have the best people available to govern us, the best educated, and the people that the electorate will vote for. If the electorate wants to vote for people who have been at private school, that's their right. And I think you get into danger of having a rather chippy argument about people's backgrounds. As David Cameron said, it's about where people are going, not where they've come from. Why did Tony Blair become the leader against Gordon Brown? The answer's obvious, because he actually could connect and communicate with people, and the fact that he'd been at Fettes was irrelevant to that. So I don't think social background helps or hinders a political career.
You think I'm coming at this from a left-wing socialist point of view. I'm not.
No one would dare call you a left-wing socialist.
I'm coming at it from a very different point of view. Being posh didn't stop Jacob winning, but it was an issue at the general election for Jacob's sister, who stood for the Tories in a neighbouring seat and lost. Your sister, who was fighting the seat next door, her name is Annunziata Rees-Mogg. Now, we understand Mr. Cameron wanted to change that to Nancy Mogg.
Well,
what would you have felt about that?
The good news is she's about to change her name, but to Annunziata Glanville. She's
Right,
about to get married.
but answer the question.
It was
How did you feel about that?
It was a joke.
It was?
Yeah, it was a joke.
Is this a dynasty we're trying to create?
No.
Sounds like it. It's a pretty narrow social group fighting politics around here.
Well, come on. My father's never been a member of Parliament.
No, he's in the
He's
House
in
of
the
Lords.
But he's not an MP around here. I think creating a dynasty would be rather ambitious.
What class are you?
I think it is for others to do. I'm a man of Somerset.
But that's where you're from.
That's where I'm from.
Geographically,
and that's
where
right.
are you? I would say, this will probably hurt you. I would say sort of upper middle rather than upper.
Well, I'm certainly not part of the aristocracy. That's definitely true.
So we'll settle for upper middle?
I'm a man of the people. Vox populi, vox Dei.
Well, class is a complicated business in modern Britain. I grew up in a council house in Paisley. These days, I live in Kensington, the poshest borough in London. I'm not a toff, but I now live a lifestyle many posh people live, such as having a housekeeper and a driver. Of course, in my case, it was hard work and ambition rather than daddy's money. But it was also because I grew up at a time when social mobility was on the rise. I had a world-class education at the 16th century Paisley Grammar School and the 15th century University of Glasgow. Grammar schools were the ladder of opportunity kids from ordinary backgrounds climbed into some of the country's top jobs. But with most grammars gone, I fear it's harder for someone from my background starting out now.
If my mother was still alive, she'd say I look smart.
I'm heading back to Paisley to see how kids there are doing in this comprehensive era.
Bye, Vanessa. When I was a kid, I used to watch all the political programs on television, the news, Panorama, World in Action, what the papers say. With my parents, kind of sad that it was true.
Here you see the pick of us. You may be heartily sick of us still with sense. We're all imbued. Our home
A world where weekends on the grouse moor with your chums was the norm.
I remember in the 1950s, it was dominated by people like Harold Macmillan and so on. And they clearly came from a different planet from me. They were from an entirely different class and social background and spoke with these strange accents that you only heard on television.
How many votes did we get at the last election? I think 12 million, something like that. They certainly weren't all the well-to-do.
100 years ago, there were deep divisions between rich and poor, great cleavages. But we made one nation now. There are differences, of course, but not the deep divisions.
I like to come to see you in person to show you that I'm not exactly what they make me look like on the TV screen.
And then this amazing thing happened in 1964. This guy with a northern accent, a Yorkshire accent, and a pipe, and kind of ordinary suits of the type that my father wore, Harold Wilson. You began to think something's changing here.
So this is what 1964 can mean. A chance for change. More than that, a time for resurgence. A chance to sweep away the grouse moor conception of national leadership.
A new type of politician had taken over, much more from ordinary backgrounds than ever before. And when that happened, it looked like it was permanent.
Are you liking it too?
The sort of streets in which I grew up were becoming the kind of place political leaders from any party might come from.
Have a look over the hedge at the old place.
This is the first time I've been back to my old home in years.
So here we are. Not such a bad place, lots of green. House over there with a garden. There's the kids are all coming out from my old primary school. They're better behaved than we were. If you want to be on television, you have to tell me who the Prime Minister is.
David Cameron.
That's a good answer. Okay, what else can we ask you? It's difficult.
That'll be a hard one.
Do we know who the Deputy Prime Minister is?
Oh, what is it again?
He's a Liberal Democrat.
Nick Clegg.
You're a star.
By the time I left for university, the first in my family ever to go, it seemed after Mr. Wilson we really were living in the age of the grammar. To stay in this new meritocratic game, the Tories ditched their Grousemoor image and chose Ted Heath to lead them, the grammar school educated son of a carpenter.
She's on the road now. Look, she's coming towards us now.
And then, most famously, a grammar school educated grocer's daughter from Grantham.
People from my sort of background needed grammar schools to compete with children from privileged homes like Shirley Williams and Anthony Wedgwood Benn.
And for a startling 33 years, from Harold Wilson to John Major, all our prime ministers were educated at state schools. The grammar school generation were taking on the public school kids at their own games and winning, even for the